welcome to Project Inclusion. We have a tight agenda today, and I promise we're going to try our very best to stay right on time. I just want to bring up Janine to tell you a little bit about logistics, and then I'm going to introduce the president of Keene State. So this is Janine Cook. She's a doctoral candidate and a wonderful person on our Project Inclusion team.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's good to see all of you out here. Thank you for coming. So I have a few logistical things for you. If you haven't already found the restrooms, you go out here to the left. Hold the water fountains, take another left. Go to the restrooms down that hallway. If you're parked here in this parking lot, you are all set. Even with spots that have faculty only labels, it's open parking for today, so you can relax about that. If you want to get on Wi-Fi, you just need to enter your first and last name and email and sign in, and you're all set under the guest profile. Let's see what else. Oh, we are live tweeting. So if you tweet using the hashtag #NerdGProjectInclusion, I'll be managing the Twitter feed, and it should show up on the screen on the far right. Let's see. Oh, also, you'll see there are index cards on the table. Those are for you when you have a question during some of the presentations, or any of the presentations that will be happening today. Write it down right away so you don't forget, and at the very end, we'll have a question and answer period. And any questions that you are unable to ask, you can then give me the index card, and we'll get back to you. So if you were not able to ask your question during the question and answer period, and you give a card to me, make sure to write your name clearly and your address so that I can read it, and then I'll be able to get a response back to you. Okay. Oh, and the table numbers are for our reference only. We'll have table discussions at lunchtime, and so the numbers are for the assigned leaders. But you are all set. You can just use it for your own reference to remember that you're at table 4. In case you get lost. And I think that's it. All right, have a great day. Thank you.
So, my name is Alane, Shanks, and I welcome all of you. I'm so glad you traveled here today to be with us, and I will be talking to you a little bit more, but right now I have the great honor of introducing Dr. Ann Hewitt, the 10th president of Keene State College. We're very grateful for her commitment to diversity and inclusion. She brings a vision that is informed by her experience as a first-generation college student, a native of New Hampshire, and an educator with an extensive background in public education. She is committed to our cause. It's been clear throughout the process that we've been working together on Project Inclusion, and it's my honor to introduce Ann Hewitt.
So, good morning. Good morning. Beautiful sunny day here in Keene, and as I like to say during the rain at commencement, the sun is always shining on our campus. But we are really, really pleased to be hosting this. It is a big deal for us to have you here, to have people from across the state here, to be part of what's going on, to be partners in the project. It's hard to believe that it's been 6 years already. Time flies. And I think that the organization 6 years ago really led to a lot of the really good things that have started to happen. The summit meetings, the collaborations, this year, the pilot projects, and we're pleased to be part of one of those, and I know you're going to hear a lot about it, and that's a good reminder to me to She's a tremendous leader, gatherer, and inspiration. And so if you haven't had a chance to interact with Dottie, I really want to encourage you to. And again, a special shout out to the Keene State College team that's been working so hard on this. And I see a number of other faculty and staff from the college here too, which is terrific. And this just fits so nicely with what I think is a core value of our college. And it is that commitment to inclusion and to equity and social justice, and thoughts about our curriculum and how we enhance those things. And, you know, I can't declare that, you know, victory, we're 100% of the way down the road, but we're on the road. And we're committed to staying on that road. It figures very prominently in our strategic plan. And it's, I think, what's important about that for us is that it's infused throughout the plan. So we're not saying that this is sort of a standalone thing over here that, you know, someone's going to worry about. It's something that we're committed to campus-wide and in each of the 4 goals that mark our plan. And so it's really, I think, inspirational for me to be hosting this conference today. And I'm really looking forward to the outcomes. And I'm sorry that I'm making another trip to Concord today. I know it's like 2 or 3 times a week lately. Because it's going to keep me from being part of this. And I really would like to be part of your workshop and to be an active participant in your conversations. And I'm really sorry that I can't be. And I know you're going to hear about each of the 4 pilots, and I really wish that I could be here to hear about the other 3 that are not Keene State. So, you know, Debbie, great job. Alane, you've been a great leader. I met Jonathan a few minutes ago. He's in here somewhere, I think. You know, I just think you're in for a really good day. And I heard that you're going to be having discussions over lunch. I also hope you'll be able to step outside for a few minutes because it's a beautiful summer day here. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you, more importantly, for what you're doing to move the needle, to move the dial, whatever expression you want to use. It's important, and it has to stay at the center of our thinking because it should be core to everything that we do. And so congratulations really to all of you for making that effort, and thanks for letting me come by and share a few words.
We are going to be videotaping this, and there are permission slips in your packets to allow us to do that, so I hope you'll sign that, but that'll give people an opportunity to watch this who weren't able to be here today. So I hope you'll do that and also fill out the evaluation forms that we have in your packet. I really thank President Hewitt for being here and thank all of you for the hard work. Thanks to all the hard work for each of the 4 project inclusion and pilot sites who have devoted a lot of effort to this project and to their presentations today. Thanks to Debbie Skiri and Campus Compact for New Hampshire for partnering with NERCHI. And again, thanks to all of you for traveling to Keene to be here today. And finally, a big thank you to the Louis G. Balfour Foundation for funding the Project Inclusion Pilot. As you can see from this slide, I have a lot of information to share. Can everyone hear me in the back? Yeah, okay, great. I have a lot of information to share with you, and I'm going to tell you about the self-assessment rubric NERCHI introduced to the pilot sites, how and where it has been used in New Hampshire, reasons you and your campus might want to consider using the rubric, how NERCHI can help you with that, and then I'll review how the rest of the day is going to go. But before I do that, I want to tell you a story that I hope will help you understand both why I have devoted my life to this work and hopefully will inspire all of us to continue to do so. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and lived with my parents and 4 sisters in a working class neighborhood in West Phoenix. And not long before I started kindergarten, there was a knock on my door. And my mom answered the door, and a group of neighbors were gathered on the porch with their arms full of for sale signs. And my mom's, they said, "Do you want to put one of these on your lawn?" And my mother said, "Why would I do that?" And they said, "Because a black family has just bought a house in our neighborhood." So my mom responded, "So why didn't you put up those signs when we moved in?" And the neighbors were puzzled and said, "What do you mean by that?" And my mom said, "Well, we're Jewish." And they said, "Oh, if we'd known, we would have put up the signs." And so my mom found out where the new family was living and made a casserole and brought me with her to welcome the family to the neighborhood. And it turned out to be a very important visit for me. The Dudley family had a daughter just my age, and Cheryl Dudley and I walked to school together every day from kindergarten through 12th grade. Then both headed to Claremont, California for college, and eventually ended up in the East, where we have remained both friends and sometimes business partners, working on diversity and inclusion issues like we have since our elementary school years. This is the picture of us in first grade. I'm the one with the very stylish glasses, and Cheryl is up the second from the top, on the front top row. Cheryl's parents were the only college-educated adults I knew for many years. Her mother was a nurse and her father was a minister, and their house was a refuge for me to read, discuss big ideas, and to learn. My friendship with Cheryl also made me an early witness to the systemic double standard of our educational experience. Even though Cheryl and I read the same books, and often she was the one explaining them to me, she was put in the remedial reading group. She was never even considered for the advanced math sessions, and she rarely was called upon in class to answer questions. And so by the end of this first grade class, she never spoke above a whisper in class, although I knew from being in her home and her being in mine that she is a poetic and powerful speaker with one of the most infectious laughs on the planet. In high school, Cheryl and I sat beside one another and in the cafeteria, and were the link between the table of black kids and white kids. And at first it was just Cheryl and me talking across the color line, but a number of other kids began to talk and even became friends. Both of us are still at it some 50 plus years later, getting people to sit together, laugh together, and so that we can all learn together. Cheryl graduated with honors from Pomona College, receiving her divinity degree from Princeton Seminary, and is currently the executive reverend of the American Baptist Church of Metro New York. Cheryl achieved her success despite and not because of her formal education. Unfortunately, kids like Cheryl are still facing prejudice and discrimination. Some things have definitely gotten better since Cheryl and I went to school, but there is a lot of work still to be done. What I think the Black Lives Matter movement and the student and faculty of color protests on campus across the country this last year are telling us is that campus climates are still not inclusive or equitable. We can't get to complete perfection, but we can do a lot better. And Project Inclusion is designed to help us take the first steps on that path. So now that you know my story and why I do this work, I'll get back to why I think our rubric is such a good tool to serve as a guide for our journey. So the self-assessment rubric for the institutionalization of diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher ed was developed by a project work team full of multicultural affairs administrators from across New England. And what emerged from that think tank was the rubric. It was designed to assist members of the higher ed community engaging the progress of their diversity, inclusion, and equity efforts on their campuses. It is not, however, a checklist. That's not the kind of rubric it is. as a visiting scholar at NERCHI, Debbie Skiri, the Campus Compact for New Hampshire CEO, and the leaders of NERCHI, John Saltmarsh and Glenn Gabbard and myself, had a meeting. And at that meeting, we learned that her membership organization, Campus Compact for New Hampshire, brings, or at least I learned this, that it brings people together and makes really good things happen. And one of those good things is that they had worked to get a president's commitment to inclusive excellence. And all 22 college presidents in New Hampshire signed that pledge. And Debbie was coming to NERCHI seeking a way to help find a way to fulfill that pledge. And part of the motivation for doing this was the 2010 census showing that New Hampshire's traditional pool of 18 to 24-year-old white students was shrinking, and that they needed to reach out, recruit, and more importantly, retain the graduate students from many different backgrounds. And over a set of discussions between Campus Compact of New Hampshire and NERCHI, Project Inclusion was conceived, and after a number of attempts to find funders, the Balfour Foundation came through. Once the Balfour funds were secured in 2015, NERCHI sent out a request for proposals inviting all public and private institutions of higher ed in New Hampshire to apply to be one of the 4 selected Project Inclusion pilot sites. The rubric had been tested by a number of colleges and universities before, but never piloted quite like what we were doing in New Hampshire, where we are testing 2 things. First, the rubric itself, and second, the utility of a systemic process using NERCHI as the backbone organization. NERCHI's system includes getting buy-in from senior leadership, forming a rubric steering committee, moving from rubric to logic model to work plan, and forming a learning community of every different institutional constituency. Our goal for Project Inclusion was not just to benefit the pilot sites, but to share the pilot sites' work so that the entire state of New Hampshire could be encouraged to develop and support a learning community. And to that end, Project Inclusion offered a webinar in January 22nd, where each of the pilot sites presented their findings to that point. It turned out that our learning community, like today, extended beyond New Hampshire, as more than 200 participants signed up from national and international campuses as far away as Spain. The response from the webinar participants was very positive and has generated interest in the rubric and in Project Inclusion process. Once the webinar was over, NERCHI provided an online training session for the pilot sites on creating a logic model to determine the best path to implementing the changes the rubric suggested, and then how to develop a work plan based on the logic model. This has helped each of the pilot sites engage in a structured, team-based process of institutional reflection and to develop systemic, sustainable initiatives directed at improving the environment of students, faculty, and staff from all backgrounds. Often, diversity, equity, and inclusion discussions get bogged down because everyone's understanding of these 3 words, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is different. The pilot sites reported that having a common definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as found in the NERCHI self-assessment rubric, allowed the rubric steering committees and the subcommittees to move forward with their work. At lunchtime, you'll have a chance to examine those definitions, and you'll hear more about the pilot sites and the rubric work as the day goes on, and hear about some very courageous conversations that were able to take place. There are other benefits from doing this work. For instance, NERCHI revised some of its standards in 2016, and diversity requirements are more specific, with the accreditor expecting campuses to develop an agreed upon set of standards and to measure and practice against those standards. Using the rubric and following a model like Project